My girlfriend left me for the yoga instructor on our dream vacation. I guess I should start with the worst moment, then work backwards so you understand how I got there. Picture this. You're sitting in the nicest restaurant you've ever been to, the kind of place where they fold your napkin when you go to the bathroom. The sun is setting over the Aegean Sea, painting everything in shades of orange and pink that don't look real. You've got an engagement ring burning a hole in your jacket pocket. And the woman you've spent 6 years of your life with, the woman you thought you'd grow old with, looks you dead in the eye and says, "I met someone who makes me feel alive." This is over. Yeah, that happened to me. 32 years old, software engineer, thought I had my whole life mapped out like a well-structured code base. Turns out life doesn't follow the documentation. Her name was Jessica. Is Jessica, I guess she didn't die or anything. 30 years old, worked in marketing at some tech startup in Manhattan. We'd been together for 6 years. Not 6 months. Not a casual thing. 6 full years of sharing an apartment, splitting bills, arguing about whose turn it was to take out the trash. 6 years of knowing exactly how she took her coffee. 2 sugars, oat milk, but only the Oatly brand because she insisted the others tasted weird. 6 years of finishing each other's sentences and having inside jokes that would make our friends roll their eyes. I thought we were solid. You know that feeling when you're so comfortable with someone that silence isn't awkward? When you can just exist in the same space and it feels right. That's what we had. At least, that's what I thought we had. The Greece trip had been in the works for 8 months. I'm not exaggerating. I started planning it the previous December. I researched hotels for weeks, read hundreds of reviews, mapped out restaurants, found the perfect secluded spot on Santorini where I was going to propose. I even practiced getting down on one knee in my apartment when she was at work, trying to figure out which knee felt more natural. Left knee, if you're wondering. The right one always made my ankle crack. The ring took 3 months to make. Custom designed. She told me once, probably 2 years ago during some random conversation about weddings, that she thought traditional solitaire diamonds were boring. She wanted something that told a story. So I worked with this jeweler in the diamond district who helped me design this sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds, each one representing a year we'd been together. The guy thought it was incredibly romantic. I thought it was perfect. It cost more than my first car, but I didn't care. You're supposed to spend money on things that matter, right? I had the proposal speech memorized, practiced it in the shower, in the car, during my morning runs. I even wrote it down and kept it in my phone just in case I blanked from nerves. Looking back, all that preparation seems almost funny, like studying for a test that gets canceled. The first 2 days in Greece were perfect. Actually perfect, not perfect in that fake Instagram way where everything looks better than it is. We arrived in Santorini in the late afternoon, and I remember Jessica's face when she saw the view from our hotel balcony. The water was this impossible shade of blue, the kind that makes you think someone adjusted the saturation in post-production. White buildings with blue domed roofs cascading down the cliff. Flowers everywhere, these bright pink bougainvillea vines that seemed to grow out of every surface. We had breakfast on the balcony that first morning. Fresh bread, local honey, Greek yogurt that actually tasted like something, not that watery stuff you get at home. She was taking photos of everything, posting them to Instagram with captions about how this was the trip of a lifetime. I watched her across the table, sunlight catching her hair, and thought about how in just a few days I'd be calling her my fiancé. We walked through OIA holding hands, our fingers intertwined in that unconscious way that happens when you've been with someone long enough. The narrow streets were crowded with tourists, but we didn't care. We ducked into little shops selling overpriced souvenirs and tried on ridiculous sun hats. We ate lunch at a place overlooking the caldera and split a Greek salad that cost 18 euros and was probably the best thing I'd ever tasted. The wine was cheap and honestly kind of terrible, but we laughed about it. That second evening, we went to a black sand beach. The sand was hot enough to burn your feet, so we had to keep moving, hopping from foot to foot like idiots. Jessica ran into the water, fully clothed, pulling me in after her. The water was cold and perfect. We kissed while waves crashed around us, tasting salt on each other's lips, and I remember thinking this was it. This was what people meant when they talked about happiness. Day 3. That's when things started to shift. Subtle at first. So subtle, I convinced myself I was imagining it. Jessica mentioned at breakfast that she wanted to try a yoga class the resort offered, which was fine. I'm not a yoga person. I've got the flexibility of a 2x4. so I said I'd go for a run instead. She seemed almost relieved, which should have been my first clue. I went for my run along the coast, breathing in that salt air, feeling grateful and lucky, and all those things you feel when life is going exactly according to plan. She was gone for 2 hours. When she came back, something was different. I can't explain it better than that. She looked the same athletic clothes, same ponytail, but something in her energy had changed. She was on her phone immediately, smiling at the screen in this private way that made me feel like I was intruding just by being in the same room. "Who are you texting?" I asked it casually, not accusatory. Just curious. "Oh, just Sarah from work. She's having drama with her boyfriend." But I glanced at her screen when she said it, and the name at the top wasn't Sarah. I couldn't make out what it was, but it definitely wasn't Sarah. And when she noticed me looking, she angled the phone away. That protective gesture people do when they're hiding something. I told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself that the stress of planning the proposal was making me see problems that weren't there. Told myself that after 6 years together, I should trust her. Day 4 was worse. Significantly, noticeably worse. She went to yoga again. Stayed even longer this time. Almost 3 hours. Came back with this glow that wasn't from exercise. I've been with her long enough to know what she looks like after a workout, and this wasn't it. She smelled like incense, and something else I couldn't identify. Not perfume exactly, but some scent that definitely wasn't hers. I made reservations at this incredible seafood restaurant I'd found during my research. The kind of place with hand-painted tiles and an owner who supposedly sang traditional Greek songs to the guests. Jessica barely touched her food. She ordered this beautiful grilled octopus that cost 30 euros and just pushed it around her plate while staring out at the water. I reached across the table for her hand, and she pulled away. Not aggressively, but deliberately. "There's a difference. You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just tired. The sun is really draining. You know how I get." I didn't know how she got. But this wasn't that. This was something else entirely. That night, back in the room, I tried to initiate intimacy. Not in a pushy way, just we were on a romantic vacation in Greece. It seemed natural. She turned away from me, mumbling something about a headache and needing to hydrate better. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe. Listening to her phone buzz quietly on the nightstand. 3 times. 4 times. 5. Each buzz felt like a tiny electric shock to my nervous system. I wanted to look at her phone so badly my fingers itched. But I didn't. Because looking at your partner's phone without permission is a violation of trust. And I still trusted her. God, I was naive. Sleep didn't come that night. I just stared at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the resort, distant laughter, music from a bar down the street, the rhythmic crash of waves against the rocks below. And I felt this cold, heavy weight settling in my chest. Like I knew something terrible was coming, but couldn't see the shape of it yet. Day 5. The day everything imploded. I'd made the reservation at this cliffside restaurant weeks in advance. You had to book early because everyone wanted to have dinner there at sunset. It was the kind of place you see in travel magazines, perched right on the edge of the caldera with views that stretched for miles. The tables were set with white linens and candles and hurricane glasses. Everything was perfect in that effortless way that actually requires enormous effort. I planned to propose between the appetizer and the main course. Right when the sun hit that particular angle that makes everything look like it's been dipped in gold. I had the ring in my jacket pocket, and my hands were sweating so badly I kept wiping them on my pants under the table. My heart was hammering so hard I thought Jessica might be able to hear it. We ordered wine. I picked something expensive because I figured this was a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Might as well do it right. The waiter poured it with this flourish, and I raised my glass to toast. Before I could say anything, before I could even begin the toast that would lead into the proposal, Jessica put down her wine glass. It made this sharp clink against the table that cut through all the ambient noise. "We need to talk." 4 words. 4 simple words that made the ring in my pocket feel like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I nodded, unable to speak. My mouth had gone completely dry despite the wine. "I met someone," she said. Just like that. No preamble, no gentle lead-in. The yoga instructor. His name is Andreas. She kept talking, but for a second I couldn't process the words. It was like she was speaking Greek and I hadn't learned the language yet. My brain just stalled. "I don't know how to explain this," she continued, her voice steady, almost clinical. "But he makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. With you, I exist. I go through the motions. I'm comfortable. I'm safe. I'm content. But with Andreas, I actually feel like I'm living. Like every nerve in my body is awake for the first time. She said it like it was a revelation, like she discovered something profound about the universe. Her eyes were bright with it, this conviction that what she was doing was somehow right. I sat there completely frozen. Around us, the restaurant continued like nothing was happening. Tourists at other tables were laughing, clinking glasses, taking selfies. A couple 3 tables over were clearly on their honeymoon, feeding each other bites of dessert. The sun was setting behind Jessica's head, painting everything in those absurd shades of orange and pink that I'd thought would be the backdrop to the happiest moment of my life. "What are you saying?" I finally managed to ask. My voice came out as barely a whisper. She looked at me with something that might have been pity. "I'm saying this is over. I'm sorry. I really am. I didn't plan for this to happen, but I can't ignore what I feel." Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "You should stay. Enjoy the rest of the vacation. The hotel is paid for anyway. I already talked to Andreas, and I'm going to stay at his villa for the rest of the week." The ring was burning a hole in my pocket. 6 years reduced to rubble in a sunset restaurant while a waiter hovered nearby with dessert menus. She reached for my hand, probably to comfort herself more than me, and I pulled back like she'd burned me. "I hope you can understand someday," she said, standing up and smoothing her dress. "I really do care about you. I hope you know that." And then she walked away. Her sandals clicked on the stone floor. She didn't look back. Not once. I sat there alone with 2 glasses of wine, a basket of bread neither of us had touched, and a $3,000 engagement ring that suddenly meant absolutely nothing. I don't remember paying the bill. I don't remember the walk back to the hotel. I just remember sitting on our balcony, my balcony now, I guess, until 3 in the morning, staring at the dark sea, holding that little velvet box. And I felt something inside me turn to ice. Cold and hard and unbreakable. The sun started rising around 5:30, painting the sky in those same mockingly beautiful colors. I hadn't slept. The engagement ring sat on the table next to an empty bottle of whiskey I'd ordered from room service at some point. My hands were shaking, partly from the alcohol, partly from something else. Not sadness anymore. Rage. Jessica's suitcase was gone. She must have come back while I was sitting there in the dark and packed her things. Too cowardly to face me again. But as I sat there watching the island wake up, boats leaving the harbor, early morning joggers on the beach below, something crystallized in my mind. I wasn't going to be the pathetic guy who stayed in Greece alone, wandering around the romantic spots we'd planned to visit, crying into overpriced cocktails. I wasn't going to give her that story to tell Andreas about how broken I was, how I couldn't even function without her. No, I was going to do something she'd never expect. I pulled out my phone and searched for flights. There was one leaving Athens in 6 hours. I booked it without hesitation. Business class because economy was full and also because I suddenly didn't give a single damn about money. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. A very specific, very methodical list. First item, change the locks on our apartment. The apartment that was in my name. The apartment I'd put down 80% of the down payment on because Jessica was still paying off her student loans. Second, contact a lawyer. Third, pack her things. Fourth, remove her from everything. Bank accounts, utilities, streaming services. All of it. I felt eerily calm as I typed, like I was planning a work project, breaking down a complex problem into manageable tasks. By 6:30, I checked out of the hotel, told the front desk there was a family emergency. The woman at reception looked sympathetic and didn't ask questions. The taxi ride to the airport took an hour. The driver tried to make small talk about how beautiful Santorini was, how lucky I was to visit. I just stared out the window, running through my mental checklist. The flight was long. 11 hours. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My brain was in overdrive, planning, calculating, anticipating every possible scenario. I landed in New York at 2 in the morning local time. Exhausted, but wired on adrenaline and bad airport coffee. First call, 24-hour locksmith service. The kind that charges triple for emergency calls. "I need my locks changed right now. Tonight. I can pay whatever you want." The guy on the phone heard something in my voice that made him not ask questions. "I'll be there in an hour." He showed up at 3. Middle-aged guy with tired eyes who'd probably seen every kind of domestic situation imaginable. Bad breakup, He asked while drilling out the old lock. Something like that. By 4, I had new keys. Jessica's old keys, the ones she'd had for 4 years, were in the trash. Useless pieces of metal. I couldn't sleep, so I started packing. Every item that belonged to her went into boxes. Every piece of clothing, every book, every makeup product, every single thing. I labeled each box with a black marker in neat block letters. Jessica's belongings. Box 1 of 15. It took 6 hours. I was meticulous about it. Careful even. I didn't want to give her any ammunition to claim I'd destroyed her property. Her winter coats, her collection of scented candles, the blender her mother gave her, the throw pillows she'd insisted we needed. All of it went into boxes. I even packed the photos of us together. Every single framed picture, wrapped carefully in newspaper. By noon, I had 15 boxes stacked in the living room, and the apartment looked completely different, like she'd never existed there. At 9 that morning, I called my lawyer, Mark. He'd been my friend since college. Mark, I need your help, and I need you not to ask too many questions right now. I explained the situation in clinical terms. No emotion, just facts. The apartment was in my name. We had some shared accounts. She had abandoned the relationship while we were on vacation. Mark was quiet for a moment. Come to my office at 2. We'll handle this. At 1, I made the hardest call. Jessica's parents, Robert and Linda. They'd always treated me like family, like the son they never had. Linda, it's me. I need to tell you something. I explained what happened in Greece. Kept my voice steady. Didn't editorialize. Just stated facts. Linda started crying. Oh, honey. Oh, no. We had no idea. She hasn't called us. Robert got on the phone. What do you need from us? I have her belongings packed. 15 boxes. I can bring them to you or put them in storage, but I can't have them here. Robert's voice was firm. Bring them here. We're so sorry. You didn't deserve this. Iranta drove to their house in New Jersey that afternoon after meeting with Mark. Loading and unloading those boxes felt like shedding weight. Jessica's parents helped me unload. Both of them looked shell-shocked, older than I remembered. Linda hugged me before I left. You're a good man. She made a terrible mistake. By 8 that evening, I was back in the apartment. Mine and mine alone. Mark had drawn up papers notifying Jessica that she was no longer authorized to enter the property, that her belongings were with her parents, and that all shared accounts would be closed within 5 business days. He'd also prepared a formal letter ending any legal cohabitation status. I stood in the middle of my living room, looking at the empty spaces where her things had been, and I smiled. Not a happy smile, but a satisfied one. I had taken control. I had refused to be the victim. Jessica was probably still in Greece, posting sunset photos with Andreas, thinking I was home crying, thinking she could return in a week and we'd have some big emotional conversation where she'd explain herself and I'd eventually forgive her. She had no idea what was waiting for her. I poured myself a drink, sat on my couch now, and allowed myself to feel the exhaustion. I'd been awake for over 40 hours, flown across the Atlantic, dismantled a 6-year relationship in less than a day. Tomorrow, I'd block her number, remove her from social media, change passwords on everything. But tonight, I let myself sit in the quiet apartment and feel something that surprised me. Relief. Whatever happened next, I made my choice. I'd chosen my dignity over waiting around to be hurt more. And that felt like the first honest thing I'd done in days. The week that followed was strange, almost surreal in its calm. I went to work, hit the gym every morning, started seeing a therapist Mark recommended who specialized in sudden relationship trauma. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just moved forward with the same methodical precision I'd used to pack those boxes. My phone stayed silent. Jessica hadn't tried to come home yet. Mark sent the legal documents on day 3. Email and certified mail to her parents' address. On day 8, my phone exploded. 17 missed calls from Jessica. A dozen text messages I didn't read. Voicemails I deleted without listening to. I'd blocked her number the day after I got back, but she was calling for different numbers now. Probably borrowing phones from people at the resort. Maybe from Andreas himself. I didn't answer any of them. Every communication went through Mark now. That was the boundary I'd set. On day 9, my building's doorman called me at work. Mr. Peterson, there's a woman here claiming to be your girlfriend. Says her key doesn't work. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice level. Her name is Jessica. She's not my girlfriend anymore. She's not authorized to enter the building. If she causes problems, call the police. Understood, sir. That evening, the doorman handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. For pages of Jessica's distinctive loopy handwriting. I threw it in the trash without reading it. Whatever excuses or explanations or apologies she'd crafted on her flight home from paradise, I didn't need to hear them. The facts were simple. She'd chosen someone else. She'd blown up our relationship for a vacation fling. Now, she had to live with the consequences. Mark called me that night. She contacted my office. She wants to talk to you. Says this is all a misunderstanding. That the guy in Greece meant nothing and she made a mistake. What did you tell her? That all communication goes through me. That her belongings are with her parents. That you're not interested in further contact. How'd she react? Got upset. Started crying. Said she just wants 5 minutes to explain. I closed my eyes, imagining her in Mark's office. Probably wearing the outfit she knew I loved. Probably using the voice she used when she wanted something. Tell her no. Tell her there's nothing to explain. She explained everything perfectly in that restaurant in Greece. 3 weeks went by. The certified mail came back signed by Jessica's mother. The documents were official. I changed my phone number. It felt final, but final was exactly what I needed. I started going out with friends again. Accepted a dinner invitation from Sarah, a woman from my company's marketing department who I'd always gotten along with. She was funny, warm, asked thoughtful questions about my work without prying into my personal life. It wasn't romantic. Not yet. But it reminded me there was life after betrayal. 1 month after Greece, I was having coffee at my favorite cafe when I saw her. Jessica, walking down the sidewalk with her mother, both carrying shopping bags. She looked terrible, like she'd lost weight she didn't need to lose. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. No muck-up. Our eyes met through the cafe window. I watched the emotions play across her face. Hope, then desperation, then something like panic. She started walking toward the cafe entrance. I calmly stood up, left a 20 on the table, walked out the back entrance that led to the side street. I didn't run. I didn't rush. I just left, because that's what you do when something is finished. You don't give it oxygen. You don't give it a stage. You just walk away. That night, I looked at the photo I'd taken of her in Santorini, the one with the sunset behind her where she looked so happy. I kept on my phone, not sure why. Maybe as a reminder of what I'd almost done, almost committed to. I deleted it and felt absolutely nothing. 2 months after Greece, Sarah and I went on our first real date. She knew the basics of what had happened. The whole office had probably heard some version of the story, but she never pushed me to talk about it. We saw a movie, had dinner at a Thai place she recommended. When she laughed at something I said, it felt genuine and light and uncomplicated. I drove home that night thinking about how Jessica had said Andreas made her feel alive. Like being comfortable with someone was a deficit instead of a gift. She chased some fantasy of intensity and passion and traded away something real. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't feel much of anything about her. I just felt grateful that she'd shown me who she was before I'd put that ring on her finger. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing that could have happened. You just don't see it until you're standing on the other side, looking back at the wreckage, realizing you're not in it anymore. You're free.
Alright, I'm out, but the next story is already on the way.